So hey guys, so a couple of weeks back me and Harry did a reaction to Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, and that seemed to do alright. So today, with Harry, I thought I'd return the favour and go through one of the most famous Star Wars expanded universe stories, Star Wars Dark Empire. So this was a comic series made in the early 90s, so about 10 years after the release of Return of the Jedi. So at this point in Star Wars, basically the only thing that's getting made is those terrible Ewok movies.
Oh yeah.
And like thousands of books that are expanding on the original trilogy. I'm not
Which
sure.
are no longer canon, most of
No, none of them are canon. Basically, yeah. So when Disney acquired the rights to Star Wars, every book, bar the Timothy Zahn Thrawn series, was scrapped from canon, and even that one is mostly based upon what the extended universe is. So Han and Leia have 3 children instead of 1. And Luke is married to Mara Jade, and they have 1 kid as well. But of course, with Disney, we know that we're not sure if he had a wife or had a love interest or anything, but he didn't have any children. So Thrawn did show up in Rebels, but apart from that, that's pretty much one of the only instances of the EU coming back. So today we'll go through the Dark Empire storyline, and we'll get your first reaction to it. So, it's a comic series released in 3 issues with 6 parts for the first 2, and then there was an extra conclusion written. So in this, we'll go through the first issue, and depending on how we go, next vid will cover just everything else. So this is authorized fan fiction at this point.
Okay.
There is a very interesting quote, I'll just try and find it, from the end of Empire's End, which I think perfectly sums up... okay. Last and first, we'd like to thank George Lucas for proving that the ancient power of imagination still lives. And the best way to describe this is unchecked imagination. This goes completely crazy. So, of course, with Star Wars comics, they always start with some sort of an opening crawl.
Yep.
So here's this one. Approximately 10 years after the Battle of Yavin, or 6 years after the Battle of Endor. So following the deaths of Darth Vader and the Emperor at the Battle of Endor, the Rebel Alliance formed a new republic over much of the galaxy. Long years of struggle have ensued because there were remnants of the Empire.
Okay.
However, remnants of the Empire have regained strength and reclaimed a majority of worlds, including the city world of Coruscant. Now a civil war with the resurgent Empire has erupted, and a new republic has seized the opportunity to increase confusion. A recent raid over Coruscant has left Luke Skywalker and Lando Calrissian stranded on the war-torn planet, but help is on the way. So basically, 5 years later, nothing's changed.
Everything's back to
Everything
normal.
is back to normal. The Empire has, in the grand scale of things, the Empire has lost merely Vader, the Emperor, and a couple of planets.
So who was spearheading the organization? If it
Well,
can get
yeah,
back
that's
to
the
the
thing.
same...
It says Han, Luke, and Leia were, and Mon Mothma and Akbar.
Yeah.
They're kind of the big players in the rebellion or resistance, as it were. This is why I much prefer what they did with Disney. You can say that, ultimately it was kind of pointless, but at least that was 30 years.
Yep.
At least they had a lot of their life to be able to celebrate this
They
achievement.
gave everyone a break.
Yes, they gave them time to have a family and actually live some sort of a life. Meanwhile, with this one, fighting just continued to go on.
There's no escape to normalcy after it all.
So it starts off in the most appropriate way for any Star Wars story too. The Millennium Falcon is flying through hyperspace with Han, Leia, Chewie, and 3PO, basically the asteroid field gang. So it's mentioned that Leia is a mother of 2 on their way to help Luke and Lando, and they drop out of hyperspace and they're just thrust into a wreckage of a space battle. So, and of course, because it's Han and Chewie, they're able to pilot through, but there's 2 medical frigates behind them following don't have as much ease, and one of them actually flies into wreckage and blows up. So, and the other one with, I don't know if it's Neenum or not, but he's on there. We'll just say it is for the sake of it.
Yep.
So they go down to Coruscant where the war is being fought, and it's basically fucked. It's war-torn. But this is before George Lucas has created Coruscant in the prequels. Okay. So it looks kind of like a weird desert city planet.
So it completely changes.
Yeah, it's not massive New York City covering an entire planet sort of thing. So then Han and Leia hop into their gunners and they start taking out AT-ATs, and then they touch down and reunite with Lando. who tells them that they crashed there and Luke felt the dark side. So he just decided to run off and go investigate. And then out of nowhere, the Empire releases these green cyber dogs. And then they're no threat. Leia just pushes them with the Force and blows them away. But it's not Leia. Guess who it is? So yeah, it's Luke.
Yep.
And he is complete, god tier at this point. He's taking out battle droids left and right. There's this bit where an AT-AT shoots blasters at him and he just reflects it with his lightsaber right back in his face. Jeez. So it's basically kind of what, the fans wanted from Luke in the new movies. But this version, I must say, is a lot less interesting. He's kind of just perfect in this.
Yeah, Luke's best because of his flaws.
Yeah.
And his
ignorance. Here he has no flaws, yeah.
He's half-trained and he's like, I'm going to go off save the world. And it's can he do it? But now there's no stakes.
Here it's semi-acceptable because he's still Prime Luke, but still not a huge fan at this point. So then he says to Leia, alright, we got to stay here because the dark side's around. And obviously Han's like, you meaning we flew all the way across the galaxy to help you and it turns out you were fine? And he's like, well, you can save Lando. And Han's like, that guy got me frozen. You think I give a shit about Lando? But then out of nowhere, I'm going to say out of nowhere a lot in this, a hyperspace wormhole arrives and swallows up the other frigate that was in the start. And Luke's like, it's here for me. So Han and Leia and Lando just fly off and Luke and R2 get swallowed up. So that's the ending of issue 1. And it's...
So there's a lot of just okay, we've got no conflict, boom, here's a new conflict.
Yeah, and I think when, unfortunately, their explanation for it all kind of takes a very similar approach to the way a certain recent Star Wars movie took their approach to explaining everything. So we go back to this Rebel Moon, Dasucha, and Akbar and Mon Mothma are talking about how Luke's Star Destroyer went down and he looks out the window to see the Falcon coming back. So basically they've taken 2 of the Star Destroyers and been using them after the Battle of Endor.
Yep.
So they get guided down and they meet Mon Mothma and she says this: we've just received word of a great war fleet emerging from the very core of the galaxy. Someone, or something, has been biding its time while feuding Imperial factions distracted our attention. We have reason to believe a dark genius is at work, creating new technologies that go beyond previous conception.
A dark genius?
It's reading this, it was the exact same reaction I had to when Rise of Skywalker, when Poe was just saying, we don't know how, but somehow the Emperor's back.
Yeah.
So basically, someone's constructed massive floating world devastators, which are just these laser things that go all over the planet. And I'm not sure if they're meant to terraform a planet or something, but they're on Mon Calamari, basically a water planet with all of Akbar's people. So they're
terraform a water planet.
Yeah, I don't know. It's so brushed over. So Wedge and Lando have to pilot Star Destroyers against these. So basically, the rebels said, hey, all these Star Destroyers left from the Battle of Endor, let's use them. So Han and Leia talk, and she feels that Luke is getting closer to the dark side. We cut to Luke and R2 on a prison ship. So, I don't even know what the fuck happened when they got to what happened in the cave. They just got transported into a prison cell.
So there's no
there's nothing of him flying through it and he gets thrust out of something. It's just he wakes up there. So they arrive on this planet Biss at the galactic core, and the dark side is going mad, and Luke's just fucking can't concentrate. The dark side's everywhere. So then they chuck him in an energy pod for Jedi. So it's those X-Men, those collars which prevent you from using your mutation. So they transport him into a room. So he enters a large room, a chair at the other end, and a voice says, "Excellent, excellent. You have come to me at your own free will." Palpatine's back. But this is only 6 years after, not 35.
Long have I waited. 6 years.
6 years.
Have I waited.
Well, and he hasn't even waited. So Palpatine goes on an exposition tangent, and he tells...
Oh, good. I was wondering.
He tells Luke that this was not the first or last time that he'll die. So basically his power has often been too much for his rotting corpse to hold. So he just disintegrates and starts in a new body.
That's a very easy thing for the writers to put in. He's too powerful for his own body. You can't kill him.
It gets better. So he basically has got hundreds of clones of himself. And so the spirit lives on, but the body dies, telling Luke that he lives primarily as energy, formlessness, and power, and offers Luke a spot next to him, basically saying, join me or kill me, and join me, or you can kill me and I'll take your body.
And I'll just come back.
Yeah. So Luke takes...
So it's very much the, like, strike me down and
yes.
I will be in you, Rey.
So Luke takes a knee, taking his father's spot as the Emperor's right-hand man. But he's doing it so he can learn more about the dark side and infiltrate it from within. Okay. What better way to do it than be Palpatine's assistant?
And who's going to expect that?
No, yeah, exactly. So at the moment it's taken an interesting twist, but it's kind of like they're still reinforcing that he's good, like, straight away. It's kind of like you want to give us like a little bit of, oh, has he actually turned?
You see, with Snape and Voldemort, the whole thing was like, he's definitely undercover, but who's he undercover for?
You only found out literally with like 45 minutes left in the last film.
Whereas this, it's all like, wink,
yeah,
wink,
he
wink,
winks.
wink.
Oh, he's winking at the camera. It's his inner monologue is
There's
going
just
off like
full
crazy.
pages of him winking.
Yeah. So we go back to whatever planet Han and Leia were on the moon, and she says she heard a terrible laughter, and they hug, and Han delivers 3 one-liners in a row. So he gives out the good old reliable, I got a bad feeling about this. Then he says, they told me marriage to a Jedi princess wasn't going to be easy. They were right.
Wow.
And then him and Chewie at the last second while they're looking off into the sunset say, we've got a date with the dark side. It's so 80s cheesy one-liners.
Table for two.
Table for two.
We'll split the check, please.
Sits on the menu tonight. So Lando and Wedge head back to Mon Calamari in the Star Destroyers, and they start blowing up these Imperial ships. And one of the generals is like, send a message to Supreme Commander Skywalker. And then these droid TIE fighters come out, and they just start destroying Republic ships. And and Lando and Wedge lose both of the Star Destroyers. And then at the same moment, Leia is confronted by the ghost of Vader. However, it's just Luke telling her not to worry. But then his eyes go yellow. And Palpatine's like, your brother risky is old and lost. And then she just collapses. So, yeah, she just collapses because I don't know why. So
wait, so Luke's trying to give her a message like, I'm fine, and then Palpatine hacks it and he's like, or is he?
Yeah. So Han's ready to leave the moon when Mon Mothma's like, oh, Leia's in pain. She told me that Luke's falling to the dark. So they take off to Nal Hutta, Jabba's home world, where there is a massive bounty on Han's head after everything he did to the Hutts, and of course Leia killed Jabba, so now she's on the thing after she strangled him in a bikini.
Hell yeah.
So they take off to this base, and one of Han's old friends, Marco, they try to find him, and they go through the Corellian sector of Nal Hutta. So in this version, Corellia is a city on Jabba's homeworld, not an actual planet like in Solo.
Oh, thanks, because I definitely remembered
a
detail of the movie Solo.
So they escape.
I was visibly confused.
There are so many Falcon chases in this, but the fact that it's a comic book, it's kind of just, okay, I'm looking at these. I'd rather be playing as it or watching it.
Yeah.
But so escape the fighters, and then we meet one of Han's ex-girlfriends, Sarlacc, and she and Leia have some catty banter before Leia's like, I've no time for this. I'm pregnant with his 3rd child. So they leave, and there's this weird alien who calls out to Leia and reveals itself to be an old Jedi who escaped during Order 66. She gives Leia a strange box. So they go into one of Han's old homes, and when they enter the place, it's trashed, and there's this malfunctioning droid just standing like, Mr. Fett is here to see you, sir. Mr. Who? What the hey? And then that's like the end of issue 3. So then the first panel of the next one, greetings, Solo. Boba Fett, but you're dead.
So everything that happens in the original trilogy means nothing.
No, not at all.
So far, Palpatine's back, Boba Fett's back.
And the Empire's back.
There's like a Vader ghost, the whole Empire's back.
Yeah. But listen to this is the greatest explanation for how he did it. One simple line. The Sarlacc found me somewhat indigestible, Solo. The Sarlacc didn't want to eat him.
Does that mean like he
threw
threw him back up, or he passed him through, or what?
So, yeah, I don't know. They never make it clear. So it turns out that his old mate, Marco, who we just met, sold him out to... And he's teamed up with Dengar, old toilet paper head bounty hunter. So they hunt him down and... Then they just escape, like they just run away, but it's followed by one of the funniest things. So as they're so we're in a massive city, so massive skyscrapers everywhere. So they're running along, and Boba Fett's shooting at them, and then there's this massive hut being like pulled along on one of these like hover floaters or whatever, and Boba Fett, one of his rockets goes off by accident, and it just smashes into the hut, knocking him off over like the abyss. So there's just this basic Jabba just falling down into the bottomless pit, and he's just screaming. And
how many times does this guy accidentally goof? Like, if it's once in Return of the Jedi, sure, but if the second he returns...
it gets better. It gets... Boba Fett is... It is incredibly slapstick what they do with him. It's so funny.
We should stick to concrete.
I know. Yeah. So, what is it? Boba Fett knocks the... So Han and Leia take the hut's floater and escape back to the Falcon. And it's... So Chewie, Sala, and X... Chewie, Sala, and there's a new guy, Ninx, are in a ship. And Leia pulls out that gift from the old Jedi. And it's a lightsaber. And she instantly gets a vision of Luke commanding Imperial forces. So we cut back to where Lando and Wedge are, and they're backed into a corner before the Rebel cavalry arrives. However, almost randomly, the Imperial Star Destroyers, they just start shutting down, self-destructing.
So it's like our inside man Luke is like hacking shit?
I think so, yeah. So we go back to Han and Leia. So they're going to Biss the Galactic Core, and guess who followed them? Boba Fett.
How? He's incompetent.
But then, as they're going in, they see so Han and Leia are able to get it through hacking. So R2 basically, if something needs to be done, R2 just hacks it in this. So what happens is, as they're getting in, so Han and Leia get through, and then they see Boba Fett's ship, and they're like, I don't like the look of that. So they basically just close the shields on him. So half of Boba Fett's ship just gets sliced through, and he goes careening off like a balloon into outer space.
So, like, we recently watched Space Force. So, like, the monkey.
Yeah, Boba Fett, yeah. Boba Fett and Dengar are just like, oh, we're going to get you, Solo. And they just go spiraling into the depths of space. And then... Han and Leia enter this big tower. So, and they basically just get in. They're like, oh, we come in peace, and then they just shoot a bunch of the guards. And then Sala flies the Falcon away. But then Luke comes out in ghost form, like he's the Wizard of Oz, and he's like, he tells them that you'll be escorted to the Emperor, and everyone's shocked, and he's like, yes, he lives. So they get in there and they see Luke and Han, and Luke and Han start talking, and Han is insulting the shit out of him, like saying, oh, look, you were just a farm boy, you had morals. And Luke's just like, you're a space pirate, you'll never understand this. Like, Han gets really volatile now, and then Luke reveals they're making him a new hand, and he asks to take Leia's saber, and she's like, no, I'm not giving it to you, you could be a Sith for all I know. And then Palpatine just appears and just goes boop, and he just blows up her lightsaber and makes and then...
That's a really convenient power to have.
I know! Before he reveals his cloning technology. And then he zaps Leia before she passes out. So Han's furious and Luke starts to choke him. And Han's still insulting him. And he's like, I'm going to kill you. Luke, you look at me, I'm going to kill you.
Is this while he's getting choked?
Yeah. He's like, I'm going to kill you. And then... And then Luke's just like, I may have to die, but I assure you, it won't be you who does the deed. He's basically calling Han a chump. And so then we get to issue 5, and I just want to show you the cover for it, because it basically tells you everything you need to know about it.
Oh my god.
I know. It's crazy.
There was a half-naked man clutching a lightsaber emerging from some grey goop.
Alright, just turn this around. So, yeah, it looks like sexy young Ian McDiarmid with a lightsaber. So, Salah is on the ship now, and they've heard Han's distress calls. So, we see Leia and Palpatine in a room, and he says she is destined for far greater than Luke is. And he shows her this Jedi holocron jello. And she's drawn to it, saying it's magical. And then this message plays, saying that 3 Jedi before have tried to infiltrate the Sith, but all have failed and perished. So she's like, hang on, you have no right to this, and Luke's in massive danger if he's trying to do this then. Palpatine gets, like, weirdly offended by her saying he's not entitled to this, and then he tries to gain sympathy by lying down in a bed, and he's going, oh, can you please help me into bed? And Leia just, like, does it. So he tells her to stay by his side, and he's like, stay with me. Soon you'll see what very few have seen. The dark side has given me a wonderful power. The power to enter one of my clones. Or indeed, I can enter anyone. I can overshadow the soul that dwells within. I can enter your child. The one that is stirring in your womb. And Leia just Leia lashes out on this old dying guy. And, like, you'd think to defeat Palpatine, you know, she'd slice him with a lightsaber. It's like, she just, like, grabs his mattress and just, like, picks it up and rolls him off it.
It's like a college prank.
Yeah, I know. With this creepy guy who wants to enter the consciousness of your child.
Yeah, he could use better terminology than enter.
I know. So yeah, he just rolls onto the floor and she runs out of the room with the holocron, and Palpatine's like, I'm so weak. So she finds Luke and she asks what he's doing, and he's just like, psst, it's me, Luke, I know what I'm doing. And she's like, oh, the Emperor's toying with you, Luke. And he has put out battle plans and master codes into R2-D2. So, basically, setting up Empire can be defeated, just let R2 do the thing.
Yep.
So, Han and Chewie get broken out of their cell by Sarlacc, and Han is about to shoot Luke before Leia tells him it's fine. But then troopers come along and they start shooting, so they flee, and Luke tells them that R2 can interfere with the world devastators that Lando was trying to take out, before it turns out he was a force projection the whole time. So this is canon in the early 90s.
Oh, good.
To some extent. So instead of in The Last Jedi where it's like it'll drain your life force projection is only a dark side power, which he's learned to do.
Okay.
So Luke enters Palpatine's cloning room where he's preparing, and he looks terrible. So he swings at him and he just kills him. So then, but then he's like, oh shit, hang on. He said he could transfer. So he just starts going like apeshit on all of these, all of his cloning pods, just chopping them all in half. And then he slashes one and the body falls out. But he missed the body. He only got the tube. And then it just kind of says, too late, Skywalker, too late. So then they have a fight. There's like a Luke versus a naked 20-year-old Papa Palpatine. And Palpy wins. He's like, you're going to help me get your sister's child so I can crush the rebellion. It is crazy shit. So now, in part 6, they're flying through to Mon Calamari. And the rebels are getting ready to storm, one of the world devastators. So R2 uses his codes to make them do it. And C-3PO is just like, R2 can make them do whatever he wants them to. So he basically just blows them all up. But then apparently the Emperor's plans are much bigger than that. It's like, oh, you may have won the battle, but I will win the war, sort of thing.
Yep.
So Leia goes up to her room and opens up the holocron. And so in The Cursed Child, that prophecy was crazy specific.
Yep.
I think we might have a contender here. A brother and sister born to walk the sky, but reckless brother falls into Darkseid's eye. Jedi sister carries hope for future in her womb. Only she can save the Skywalkers from certain doom. A Jedi killer wants to tame her. Now the Darkseid Lord comes to tame her.
Not sure who it's talking about.
It's so like, come on.
Walks the sky.
Yeah.
I'm being subtle.
I mean, what was the thing in in Cursed Child, where it was just like, once time is turned.
When time is turned, when unseen children murder their fathers, then the Dark Lord returns.
Oh, God.
You see, there was an extent to which it was vague, like 3%.
Yeah.
This is 1% vague.
And then it finishes with, she must battle, join against this thief, or the dynasty of all the Jedi will soon come to grief. And literally, as soon as she finishes it, a dreadnought, you know that thing from the start of Last Jedi?
Yep.
Comes out of space and they receive a hologram from young Palpatine asking for Leia to return the holocron. So she goes on board, she confronts Palpatine, and he tries to place a curse on the child, but then decides instead, no, I'll get Luke to kill you, which kind of goes against the whole, I'm going to take over your baby. But then... So Luke and Leia start dueling, and Luke's like, I've gone too far. Now I know why Vader turned, because once he echoes what Yoda said, once you start down the dark path forever, will it dominate your destiny? But he's like, psych! I only feel isolation, sadness, and fear from the dark side. And Palpatine's like saying like, hey, fuck you, man. That hurts.
I'm right here.
Yeah. Your father was a weak dog. So they start going at it. Palpy and Luke fight again before Luke slices off Palpatine's hand because Star Wars. And they're going to take him in. But then the hyperspace wormhole comes out and starts gobbling up rebel ships left and right. And Palpatine, he looks like Dracula in the comics now. His hair's slicked back. He's got his robe up to there. And his hatred becomes unleashed. And he can't control it. His body's too weak for it. This clone he has is faulty. So it can't contain his anger. So that's what ends up destroying him. He just basically bursts. And Luke and Leia flee, and Luke tells Leia that her third son will become a great Jedi, and the Jedi Knights will rise once more. That's the end of Dark Empire, Episode 1.
Sorry, Episode 1?
Episode 1. The Part 1.
We were going through issues, and I'm like, okay, there's a lot of content.
I don't know how comic books work, a story or whatever. But that was Part 1. We'll go record Part 2 basically straight on from this.
Oh boy, do I have a lot of thoughts so far.
Do you want to give us your thoughts so far, sir?
Does anything matter?
No, nothing matters right now, because this is what you are witnessing right now is the Star Wars expanded universe. The original trilogy might as well have been a pipe dream.
Yeah.
Nothing matters in the long run.
I just love though how there was so much content, and just with one just swipe, it's like, and it's non-canon.
I feel like a lot of this stuff is people who were who didn't like how Return of the Jedi ended.
Yeah.
And they wanted their own sort of ending. Or not maybe that specific, but along that line of, maybe we wanted a bit more from the Emperor.
Yeah.
I think because to be fair, if you watch Return of the Jedi without the pretext of the prequels, Palpatine does kind of just come out of nowhere.
I think the prequels do well with the character of Palpatine.
He was
I think all the other characters that allow him to rise to power.
Yeah, that's the dumb stuff.
It's like, sorry, what?
Yeah. So, right.
Jar Jar Binks is the reason that Palpatine rose to power. Oh, God.
So...
But, like, so what's the end game? How do you defeat Palpatine if he's just going to be like, it's like, how do you kill Wolverine?
Exactly. Yeah. So you find out in the next part, and it's just a simple. It's like it's a simple thing, but it's a dumb thing. It's a very much. How can we actually defeat him? Like throwing him into a shaft of a exploding super weapon wasn't enough.
Is it going to be like, we found a kryptonite, this little rock, and it's going to like...
My problem with all of this, my main problem is that ultimately it nullifies Anakin Skywalker's sacrifice and the prophecy of the Chosen One. I hate the prophecy of the Chosen One in the Star Wars sense, because it basically makes Darth Vader space Jesus.
Yeah.
But I can live with it, but I'm fine with like the person who will destroy the Sith and bring balance to the Force. However, I've always hated, I hated when they brought back Palpatine Rise of Skywalker. I hate it here. because it just nullifies the ending of Return of the Jedi.
Exactly. And I mean, the fact that it's 6 movies.
It's 6 movies.
In hindsight,
yes.
It's 6 movies that lead up to this turn that Anakin decides to go with his family to defeat the Emperor, and it's like, except it means nothing.
Because he'll be back in a few years.
Like what's the point then?
I wasn't. I like the Duel of the Fates story more than the Rise of Skywalker one, but even then, that story's a bit sloppy.
Yeah.
Because have you the whole relationship between Poe and Rey is like they're ripping off Han and Leia's story, like beat for beat. Some of that dialogue where he's just like, "Oh, excuse me, Supreme Master Jedi, I'm in love with you." That's the sort of dialogue that was there.
Yeah, I never read through all of it, but I watched the animated version on YouTube, which was really good. But
it definitely brushes over some of the less appealing aspects. But ultimately, it's better to just continue along their own story, because Duel of the Fates would have been like very much a story dictated by the main character, by these new characters, rather than. Because obviously, Force Awakens was kind of driven for at least for the second and the third act by Han and Leia to an extent, and Last Jedi was largely dictated by Leia and Luke's actions. But this one would have been a chance for them to really step out into their own. But thank you for watching, guys. We'll be back for the next video in a few days' time.
I sure hope not.
Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. See you soon.
Bye.